So here's the gospel reading from today's Novus Ordo Mass, because I went to a Novus Ordo Mass today and I was really struck by something in this gospel reading that ties in with what I'm always talking about on the show. So here goes. This is from John 16. It's again the Last Supper discourse, that beautiful final words of Jesus before, I don't want to say before the ascension, but before the crucifixion, not exactly final words, but the final exhortation to his apostles before everything hit the fan. The disciples said to Jesus, I apologize, I shouldn't have used that expression, but just before the passion began to unfold. The disciples said to Jesus, "Now you are talking plainly and not in any figure of speech. Now we realize that you know everything and that you do not need to have anyone question you. Because of this, we believe that you came from God." Jesus answered them, "Do you believe now? Behold, the hour is coming and has arrived when each one of you will be scattered to his own home, and you will leave me alone. But I am not alone, because the Father is with me. I have told you this so you might have peace in me. In the world you will have trouble, but take courage. I have conquered the world." Now, why am I talking about this? I'll just expand myself a little bit here. A lot, in fact. I don't like to expand myself more than Jesus, but anyway. Okay. This seems like a contradiction, doesn't it? You might have peace in me. In the world you will have trouble. I have conquered the world. It seems like there are two contradictory things going on. On the one hand, you have this promise of total peace. And we saw this elsewhere in the Last Supper discourse, right? John 14, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you." And then here, "I have said this to you, that in me you may have peace. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you, not as the world gives do I give it to you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid." Okay, so on the one hand, Jesus is promising us perfect peace. On the other hand, he's promising us perfect trouble, right? Because he also says in John 14, "I will no longer talk much with you, for the ruler of this world is coming." The ruler of this world is Satan. And then here in this passage, he says, "In the world you will have tribulation." But on the other hand, he says, "I have overcome the world." So how can the ruler of this world be Satan? How can in this world we have tribulation, and yet have Jesus have overcome the world and promised us peace? Isn't this a contradiction? And of course the answer is no, it's not a contradiction. And what's the resolution to this apparent contradiction? It is that everything that happens to us is total divine providence. Nothing happens to us that isn't exactly the best possible thing that could be arranged by Jesus. That's why we can have perfect peace, because everything is totally in Jesus' hands and nothing is happening that isn't his choice to have happen to us. That's how we can have peace. However, that peace, the world, the experience of the world is going to be a continual experience of trouble and chaos and suffering, because Satan is the ruler of this world, and Jesus promises us that in this world we will have tribulation, we will have troubles. So our peace comes because we know both of those things, and Jesus, I trust in you. In other words, we simply abandon ourselves to the divine will. We abandon ourselves to divine providence, to what Jesus wants for us, understanding that all of the suffering and all of the troubles that come are not fundamentally bad things, but we are not looking, we're not looking at our perspective is not the perspective of the world. We're not looking at we're not actually looking for our happiness and our peace in the circumstances of this life, because we've been promised to have trouble, tribulations in this life in which Satan is the prince of the world. However, those troubles and tribulations are themselves entirely choreographed by Jesus, and that's where our peace lies. I didn't do the world's best job of this, but I hope you got at least a kind of a flavor of what I'm talking about. Or no, you got a perfect flavor of what I'm saying, because I'm not saying it well. But when it occurred to me, it was much clearer than it is right now. You know, our hope isn't in this world. We don't expect things to go right in this world. That's not the purpose of this world. So if we keep our eyes on Jesus, in the sense that we know that what's happening is his will, then we can still have peace despite the tribulations of this world. Now, contrast this, if you will. I'll put this, well, I'll leave those, actually, I'll leave this up because it's got the words here. Contrast this with the health and wealth gospel, right? Contrast this with Joel Osteen or the Protestant preachers on the internet or on TV. They don't get this, right? Jesus suffered so that we could have everything hunky-dory and peaceful in this world. They are the ones who pretend to base everything on scriptures, right? And the Bible alone and everything. But they don't listen to what Jesus says. In the world, you will have trouble. So let me get this. We only have trouble because we don't have sufficient faith. So apparently the 12 apostles didn't have sufficient faith. I mean, even though they chose to be martyred, their faith was insufficient. Otherwise, nothing bad would have happened to them. Do you see how ridiculous it is? Anyway. Let me know in the chat stream if you like this. Speaking of tribulations in this world, and speaking of the fact that we don't believe in the health and wealth and peaceful and hunky-dory gospel, it's time to go to D-Live. So I'm not even going to open my mouth, because I know that those voice recognition, speech recognition systems are listening to my voice. And if I say that, the drug that I said, do you remember that? There was a YouTube show at the beginning of COVID where I pronounced the name of the unmentionable drug, and the stream was cut within 30 seconds. I mean, in other words, in real time, I was taken down, and I just said the word. So obviously they had a speech recognition system that was looking for the sound of that word. So I'm not going to say anything until I go over there. See, he's conquered the world. He's conquered the world, but the Satan is still the prince of this world, even though he's conquered this world. And that is resolved by the fact that he's done absolutely everything necessary to make this world 100% tool for our good, for our salvation. There's a passage in Goethe's Faust where Satan basically identifies himself. And he identifies himself as, I am the one who always seeks to do evil, but ends up always doing good. In other words, Jesus' conquering the world consists of having done this wonderful jujitsu on Satan, so that all of the evil he does ends up actually being for the good. He can't help himself from cooperating with what Jesus wants. He's trying to do evil, but Jesus flips it around so that, as St. Paul says, all things work together for the good for those who love God.